Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Dynamic Thriving Podcast. I am your host, Marianne Pack, spiritual medium, best-selling author, publisher, and joy advocate, guiding you into all things life transformational. And this is the Unmuted Voices series. And we're talking this whole season as we wrap up 2022. We have been talking about how my guests have found themselves muted, their voices, whether it's their physical voice or just how they express life was muted. And then the aha moments that helped them become aware of what they were doing and realizing they had to change. Something had to give. And they joyously have found their unmuted voices. And so I am so happy to welcome LaChelle Adkins, America's Supermom, to the show. Hi, LaChelle. It's been a while since we've been together.
Yes, I am so glad to be here, Marianne. And you had me at the title, okay? Unmuted. I love that. I am always excited to be in your company and have some of these dynamic conversations. So I am happy to be here today.
Well, I am so glad you said yes to coming on. We've had this plan for quite a while, and I'm so glad the day has finally come. So I am going to jump right in, LaChelle, and ask you, when did you feel like it wasn't safe for you to unmute your voice? What kept you muted in life? Maybe from childhood, maybe from other beliefs that we get indoctrinated in and take on. What was that time that was kind of, you realized you had to mute yourself?
Yeah, I really think it has been somewhat of a lifelong journey. I was raised an only child, and so to me, I had packaged it as taking it for the team. So, if it's an argument or a disagreement, just being quiet and doing what's best for the moment was how I had packaged it for myself. And so I had this idea of believing that I was helping other people by holding my peace, whether it was with my children or my husband, even, different things in the community. I just didn't want a lot of conflict. And I believe that's really where it started. So it's this idea, that I'm helping everybody by just being quiet. They don't understand what I'm trying to say. And rather than go through all the work and trouble, why don't I just be quiet and wait till later on, maybe when I'm with that person by themselves? And, those days never come. So I think it was really just this mindset of believing that I was helping other people by me being quiet. That was my story.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the things that I call them indoctrinated beliefs, because they're typically things that we take on that are not our truth, that are not true for us. So whether it was, through family or society, cultural, or wherever they happen to come from, religious, what were some of those indoctrinated beliefs that you feel like kept that suppressed? What were you believing about yourself that made you mute yourself?
Yeah, I think that really, and looking back, we can learn a lot from reflecting. And I believe that I had a ability to be somewhat of a disruptor. I look at being a mom now of 15 children. To me, that's disruptive, considering I was the only child. So there's a lot about me that just is not like everybody else. And so rather than feeling like, people aren't going to understand, or I didn't want to have things be escalated to arguments, because I just think now back, I just really had a limited idea of what communication was, understanding how to put things in the way of communicating to other people where they're not offended. I was in gifted classes, and I believe that there was this education barrier in a lot of times. And so I wanted to blend in. I didn't want to stand out by using words that people might not have understood, or always feeling like I had to explain myself. I felt like if I said something, then it would require me to go back to explain it. And when I was younger, I never will forget that a lot of my cousins would always call me proper. I started wearing glasses at a young age, and my diction was different than theirs. They would always tease me about it. So there was that element of feeling like, I wasn't fitting in from a very young age. And so feeling like, nobody's going to understand what I have to say. And, you're using these big words and all that. So I really believe that's where it kind of started. And over time, it just seemed like it's simpler. So, and that even led to other areas of my life. I do have a lot of children, and there were times where certain chores I just wouldn't delegate because I think it's just simpler if I do it. They're not going to do it right. I got to go back and redo it anyway. So why don't I do it? And so that's where the overwhelm kind of began, from not only just speaking, but feeling like I have to do it all because it should be done right the first time. And it's more time to try to go back and redo it or explain.
Yeah, you jumped ahead there just a little bit, which is wonderful because it's headed in the direction that I wanted to go next. Was, how did that muting, how did that affect the rest of your life, your
Mm,
relationships, your maybe even choosing the college or what you wanted to study in college?
mhm,
Sometimes it affects that.
mhm.
Um, finances, the work you choose, um, how your health, maybe, because mine was a definite health issue.
Mhm.
The way the toxic indoctrination that I had going on. So I know it fingers out into so
Yes.
many areas of life when we mute ourselves. So how did that affect those different areas?
Well, I love that question because, we're back to this reflection. And during that time of, I had a journey of 13 years of depression. And
Mhm.
I read a post one time that said that being silent with others can cause a war within yourself. And for me, that really encapsulated a lot of what I felt because, when I was thinking I was taking it for the team or making things really easier on everybody else, I was the one that was suffering. And, to feel like I didn't feel comfortable enough to share what I thought, or, I was always in this pattern of putting myself last, putting others before me, whether it's their opinion, whether it is even just certain routines, and so over time, that really affected my own mindset and how my perspective was. So I struggled with that for 13 years, and I was hospitalized 3 times because that cycle just kept getting repeated. I would be hospitalized, we would modify things temporarily, and then boom, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. So it wasn't until my last hospitalization that I thought, this is a pattern and I'm the common denominator. As much as I want to blame everybody else, I can take a control in this situation, decide to do something different. And that is where things begin to change for me.
Yeah, living with depression can be, it just really affects so many areas.
Hmm.
Um, because again, it's that anger turned inward, that
Hmm.
resentment, I love the quote. Say that quote again that you said about the
Yes, being silent with others can start a war within yourself. And
yes,
I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's what
yes.
stood out to me. It's different versions of it, but it is, while you're thinking that you're holding your peace, and for other people, that's
Mhm.
looking like you're just so easy to get along with, but inside you are not in alignment. That's what I would say. There's a disconnect. It is your values are not being fully expressed, and you know that more than anybody else. So, although you may look to appear to be something to other people, you know yourself, you know what matters to you. And anytime that you don't speak up for you and you discount that, you begin to really have a pattern that's not good. And, you're not going to be able to believe in yourself. You don't trust yourself. I mean, this is my story. And so a number of things start to have a domino effect because you are putting yourself last. It's a practice that you're doing, and you never really validate a lot of your beliefs and ideas. And so it's hard for you to believe that things can change. It just starts trickling, like you said, into other areas. It affects your outlook and how you wake up in the morning, starting your day. And coming from a negative space is a hard thing to overcompensate for, because it's exhausting. It's just like pouring water in a cup that has a hole in it. It's just going right through it.
Right.
Hmm.
So since you've got the 15 children, you've had depression for 13 years.
Hmm.
Is that right? You said
Hmm.
3 hospitalizations.
Hmm.
That had to have had a detrimental effect even on the children or on the relationship with your
Yes.
husband, because you're just not functioning um true to who you are, because you have this stuff layered all on top of you.
Right. Well,
Speak
and
a little bit of that, how that affected even the family dynamic.
I love that you noticed that because, first of all, my idea of depression was someone who stays in the bed and doesn't get up every day. They're just not motivated to do anything. And so I was always busy. My kids had extracurricular activities. My husband was the sole breadwinner. So I was active with them in school. I was part of PTA and school council. So always doing these things that depression wasn't even on my radar, but it did show up in the fact that I feel like my life was different outside the home rather than inside the home. So inside the home, it was about always making sure that everything had to be just so. My kids, it was like, I appreciated them doing well in school, but, it was like, people were always watching. I felt my husband's also a pastor. And so it was that element of, never really being able to relax, always feeling like, the living room had to be clean at all times because you never know when somebody's going to come over. And, we just got to have this perfect facade. It was exhausting. And so, although I received compliments, there were times that those compliments just didn't register to me because at home I'm thinking, my kids left this morning, they didn't have their bed made. Or if they only know that I have a sink full of dishes, I left those dishes in the sink and I'm here at this event, I should be washing those dishes. I mean, so I wasn't able to receive a lot of the pouring back in that people gave me because my voice was the one that I heard more than anybody else's.
Right. So when did it start shifting for you? Like, when did some of those aha moments, was it, for me, my initial one was a crash at 34. And
Hmm.
then it seemed like there were little aha moments over the years that culminated into, unmuting my voice, and which is always a process. I'm still doing it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't speak up every single time that I feel I need to.
Hmm.
So you still, I'm still learning to not suppress who I am. But what were some of those aha moments that started really awakening that in you and stirring that?
Well, it really didn't happen until after my last hospitalization.
Mhm.
So each of the times that I was hospitalized, my husband sought intervention, because I was just like the Energizer bunny. I was not getting sleep. I was just very, so driven, because my background, I was an only child. I was a high achiever, gifted classes. And I just felt like, if I wanted something, I could work towards it. But this idea of doing it all on my shoulders, that was something that it was not foreign to me. And so, I just kept adding more and more on my plate. because I just felt like, okay, I can do this. I've done it in the past and been successful. So, what's one more kid? What's one more thing on my plate? That's just how I was thinking. Crazy. Okay. So anyway, after my last hospitalization, that's when I realized, you know what? This is a pattern. And if I don't do something different, I'm going to continue this cycle, because although I blamed my husband and kids at the time, I realized that the more I gave blame to others, that I was giving my power away. If I really took accountability and said, okay, I wasn't involved in self care, I didn't know how to say no, I didn't have these boundaries and enforce them, I didn't give things to other people for them to contribute and delegate. This was what I did. So once I started taking accountability for that, I realized that that's when things can change. It was up to me to change that dynamic, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, I was 46 when this happened, and I'll be 52 in less than a month. And so this whole time, it has still continued to be a transition for my children, because they are like, who is this woman? You know what I'm saying? With some of the things that I've done. And I just feel like I'm patient with that. I have a support group. I started coaching. I did a lot of things to really support this journey, because I realized that a lot of these patterns, mindsets, I had them until I was 45, 46 years old. So they weren't going to change overnight.
Right.
And so making sure that I had that support group and tribe to kind of navigate through these waters. And that has allowed me to have the patience to let my kids and husband, have their ahas when their ahas are appropriate for them to learn from.
That's that's so that's so good. And I like how you give them space too.
Mm-hmm.
You finally figured out, I have to allow myself space
Mm-hmm.
to take care of me and to provide for my needs, because it's me here.
Right.
It's taking the responsibility that it's our mindset, and and stop playing that blame game
Yes.
of they're out to get me and to cause my life misery, instead of realizing, oh, I could shift some mindset. And I love that you talked about getting coaching and help, the support that you needed, because
Yes.
we all need that. I am such a proponent of coaching and getting that kind of support to walk you through some of those things,
Mm-hmm.
because our coaches are the ones who can ask those questions
Mm-hmm.
that our eyes being open. I call it a light bulb in the soul moment, those aha moments
Mm-hmm.
that help us, realize where our blocks are. Because,
Mm-hmm.
we have our blinders on, and then our coaches kind of help us go like this and open up and see life a little differently and give us a different perspective. They're not telling us what to see, they're just pointing us in the direction.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
So
And
go ahead.
And I was going to say, that is such an important point, because, there's so many things that I've learned through coaching, through therapists, psychiatrists, about the brain, behavior,
Mhm.
that has really opened my eyes up to beginning to even understand how to model healthy mindset and mental fitness for my own children. Something as simple as, I just got a message today, just in transparency. I'm doing a book club discussion on LinkedIn audio with a co-host, and I get a message that one of my kids was late to one of their classes, and they're going to have to be sent to the office for a referral. So he's in high school, but understanding that because I can take accountability, I can help him take accountability, for him to understand that, these are consequences of the choices that you decide to make.
Mhm.
Before, I would have been like, oh my gosh, what can I do to make him do right, which I'm not saying that there won't be consequences at home and, phone taken away and all these other things. But the issue is the mindset shift, the ability to help them to see that the results that they incur are the result of their decisions. So if you decide not to go to class on time, then the consequence is that you chose what that outcome is going to be. It's going to be you're in the office at school, and at home, your phone is taken away. No video game, no company for a week or whatever that looks like. But before, I would have been like, oh my gosh, they would have got the punishment, but I would have felt the weight,
Right.
feeling like as a mom, what am I doing wrong? Second guessing myself. But we have to understand that people have to have their own ability to choose for themselves. They have to be able to exercise that free will. So I'm in a different place now. And I know that it wouldn't have been that way if I was still stuck in that same mindset that didn't serve me almost 7 years ago.
So true. So true. Yeah. So I always say our mess is our message.
Mm-hmm.
So usually what we have worked through becomes typically what we share in the world, and for entrepreneurs it typically has something to do with the work that we do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so personal. We've
Yes.
worked through it, or we're still working through it,
Yes.
but we have gained enough wisdom and transformation that we know it makes a difference. And so, as coaches or service provider, product providers, whatever you're doing, it's in service to helping them overcome
Mm-hmm.
and live more joyful lives and that kind of thing. So what was your mess that became your message? What are you doing now because of you're transformed through this, and you're still, of course, on that path? It's a journey, but
Mm-hmm.
you've done enough work that you're a support to other people.
Well, thank you so much for that question. The first thing is I have a new solo book that's out. Do you
Yay!
want to behold 7 steps to living mass free? Because as a mom with 15 children, I know I can't be there to all people. So being able to capture and on a book the highlights of what I have learned was one of those steps that I took. I'm also a coach because I believe in being able to share the insights that I have had can help other people avoid the pitfalls and things on their journey that I experienced. And, message is one of the things that I am so passionate about. So I do that on all media platforms. I'm a TV producer, a podcast host,
Mhm.
and a keynote speaker. So anywhere that someone gives me a microphone or audience, I am a poster child for life after depression because especially right now with this global pandemic, so many people are still suffering. We just had this week where 10,000 people were laid off of Amazon and 11,000 from Facebook. And so being mindful that, emotional intelligence and also just the things that we're suffering from, whether it's family members we lost during this pandemic and even just a change of life. So many people are reaching out and they need someone to talk to. So I am very passionate about making sure that people understand how to ask for help because as an only child and a high achiever, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. A lot of times I didn't know who to ask for help. It's not every day I run into a mom who has 15 children. So even that, it's like, other moms are like, hey, I can't help you. I only have one. You know what I'm saying? But so much insights I have learned from all mothers, from
Mhm.
cooking to methods of organizing your home. I mean, and the list goes on and on. I still am learning every day. So, just being light in the world, I think is so important. Whether you have a small platform or a big platform, people need to hear your insights because, that just encourages and inspires us all to keep moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I love seeing you everywhere on social media, on YouTube, your TV show, and it's always inspiring. Your guests are beautiful and
Mhm.
sharing their stories, and you talk a lot about mental health. So,
Mhm.
and I love your smile
Oh,
acronym, but your smile
yes.
acronym too.
Yes. Yes.
Because tell everybody about that because I love that. I love.
Yes. I came up with that during the pandemic because we had so many reports that was saying that it was going to be a problem for kids because of the social distancing, them being in a virtual environment. And I felt like if we know this is happening, why are we not being proactive about it?
Mhm.
So I created an acronym for SMILE, and it stands for sleep, mood, inner voice, laughter, and energy. So those were really the five pillars that I suffered in every area during my depression. And so I think if we just take the time to really examine, hey, how much sleep have I been having?
Mhm.
Is this mood a continuous thing that I've been having over a week, a month? And it's also a great conversation for people that you feel like are not quite where they should be. You can start asking them questions that can help them to get out of that cycle. Now, I'm not a doctor and I don't, profess to be one, but these were questions that if people began to ask me that, I would be more conscious and take note and probably could avoid it a lot of that downward spiral in my own life.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And do you have a program around that or
Actually, it's kind of wrapped in all of my programs because
okay.
I think it's something we need to do every day, right? And it's to me, I think it's the ability to self analyze.
Mhm.
A lot of times we wait for problems or we don't know how to get a coach. Sometimes we can't afford a coach. But if we just begin to kind of have that checklist system for
Right,
ourselves
right.
and say, hey, how much sleep, anything that we track and measure, then we can begin to kind of understand how we can modify it, how we can change it, how we can improve it. And so a lot of times we don't track and measure a lot of things. And so
Mhm.
if we begin to kind of start doing that, that can help us to get in the right direction. If you realize that you're a coach and you're not getting any clients, you're going to be like, now, wait a minute. I haven't had a client in so many months. So either I need to get some training or figure out what's going on with my messaging or something so that I can get back on the right track. So we need to begin to do this sometimes just with our own personal development. Are people even understanding? Do we need to be better communicators? Do we need to listen better? I mean, it's just a number of things that, we're a work in progress, I believe. It's an evolution. So, but being able to monitor that for yourself, I think is so important because we are growing and changing every day.
Yes. Yes, that's one of the things that I like to even suggest is, if you're until you get kind of used to monitoring how you're feeling throughout the day,
Hmm.
set a timer on the phone for every hour, every 2 hours, and
Yeah.
just check in. How am I feeling? Am I
Hmm.
feeling satisfied? Am I feeling good? Am I
Yes.
starting to go off the deep end again?
Right.
Where am I in my day so that it doesn't have to get so far away from you
So true.
before you realize it.
Yeah.
So, because our emotions tell on our thoughts every single time.
So
So,
true.
if you'll check in with how you're feeling, what your emotions are, it
Yeah.
will let you know exactly. You can think back, okay, what was I just thinking? What
So
pattern was
true.
I falling into again? Was it, an uplifting pattern or was it something that's going to make me spiral down? So being very mindful of how
Yeah.
you're feeling throughout the day is really helpful.
So true. I had a lady who she had did a podcast and she explained how, our emotions have like 90 seconds that we can process them. And if we don't process them correctly, it can take, I want to say she said 36 hours for a female, and it's like 12 hours for a male. Now, I could be getting this wrong, but the point is, the impact can last so much longer if we don't process it quickly. And so if we're so caught up with not even understanding how to analyze that, this is where we get to the point to where we say, "Oh, I had a horrible day." When really what happened was somebody just cut you off in traffic that only lasted a minute or two, but your whole day is gone now
Yes.
because you have transferred that mindset into the rest of your day when it really didn't deserve it. So when
Absolutely.
we're able to process things within that 90 seconds, then we don't have that lingering impact with other things. So I thought that was very important to remember, because, we could have issues with our kids, and it's like they do something, we're fussing at them. Next thing you know, they've gone on about their day and you're still upset.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes,
Hmm.
I my husband's daughter she was an ICU nurse in her early 20s, and
Hmm.
she's getting her doctorate right now, so we're real proud for her. But she told me, uh, she said, I always have a good day. It may be a bad 10 minutes, but it's always a good day.
Hmm.
And that's those little moments, that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The kids irritate you or do something that makes you angry, and yet they've gone off and they're all hunky-dory and happy, and you're still stewing over here.
So true.
Yes,
Yeah.
instead of just letting it go. So,
Hmm.
and that's where we have to be mindful to watch those emotions, check in with how
Yeah.
we're feeling, because it it wouldn't have to bubble over and
Right.
carry for all those hours had we dealt with it, like you said, in those
Hmm.
first little bit when that emotion started going. And that's why checking in really often with how you're feeling, it
Yes.
doesn't let it spiral out of control. Or you can also praise yourself when you're feeling good and
So
going,
true.
yes, I'm on this, I'm doing this, I've got this.
So
So
true.
we have to
And
celebrate ourselves too.
and I love that too, the fact that, if you're living, there are things vibrating. I was
Yes.
reading this book about how, animals and plants, they have a lower vibration
Mhm.
than humans. And if you understand that there is vibration all the time, that's something that you do need to monitor.
Mhm.
I could be here with this vibration, I could go in another room and it's a different vibration. And that's part of making sure that you're a thermostat for yourself,
Right.
because you should be able to determine what temperature you want to be at, and understanding that there are going to be some factors that can contribute to that temperature. And
Mhm.
so understanding that kind of power from the very beginning, I think, is so key. But a lot of times we go through life and we're just like, I don't know what happened. You're feeling good, you go in a room and things are crazy, and you leave out of there and you're like, what just happened? Because we're not aware that these things do affect our energy and how we show up. So, really being mindful of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Einstein told us everything is energy. And
Hmm.
Tesla, he said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
We're not our physical beings, everything is energy. The desk, the chairs, everything is
Hmm.
energy. It's always in motion, and it's
Hmm.
always creating vibrations.
Hmm.
Which vibration are you going to tune into?
Yeah.
The happier, higher vibrations of joy and
Hmm.
love? Or are you going to tune yourself into those lower vibrations and the temperature you don't want, like
So
LaChelle
true.
was talking about? Tune
Hmm.
into that temperature, and let that be your emanation. Let that be your
Hmm.
transmission, your radio signal to the universe, and match those things. So I love it. Thank you so much, LaChelle. This has been such a delightful conversation. do you want to tell us anything about anything you've got going on that you want to invite people to? Um,
Absolutely. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show again. This has just been a joy, and I love what you're doing, your passion to be able to help women. It's because of people like you that people feel comfortable to admit a lot of things that they suffer in silence about.
yeah.
So having a place where they can land, where they can be able to talk about these topics, I think is huge.
Mm.
But in terms of things that I do have book clubs that are going on for my new book. So if anybody wants to get a hold of those, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm pretty much everywhere.
Right.
I'm also doing a Christmas campaign. So I have different meetings once a month to help business owners with creative ways that they can show up in their business. That's really promoted through LinkedIn, but it's actually a Zoom presentation where we meet and talk about some creative ways that we can really help our clients, how we can spread holiday cheer just in little ways that really help us to build better relationships with our clients. And lastly, I have a book club series that's on LinkedIn on Thursdays and Clubhouse on Saturday mornings.
Oh,
Both of those are at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is what I've got going on.
wonderful. And you can reach LaChelle at her website, LaChelleAdkins.com. And it is in the show notes for your convenience. So get a hold of LaChelle and find out what she's doing. You can find her, like she said, you can find LaChelle on every social media platform and YouTube and everywhere. She's everywhere. So thank you, LaChelle. I so appreciate you.
Well, thank you again for having me. And I just want to remind everybody that to just smile. You never know what a smile can do in the lives of other people who are really suffering in silence from family members that they're lost, or maybe they've even lost their jobs. And, it's a hard time. We have times when we are working, other people are not. And how do we show up? Some people feel bad about that. They don't know what to do. We're in a situation where it is a paradox. You could be blessed for having a job, but then feel bad for those that don't. So just remembering to smile, to let people know they're not invisible, and for us to just simply do what we can in our own households and family to help other people realize that they're not alone.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you,
Mhm.
LaChelle. I
You
so
as
appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Be sure to, you know, support this podcast by liking and commenting and sharing it with someone who may be dealing with some depression. So, LaChelle is an excellent coach for that. I have been in listening to her for several years now. So, I know and love LaChelle's work and know that she can support you. Also, we have the upcoming Unmuted Voices book anthology. I have been diligently working on it, and so have the authors, and we're pulling that together, and that will launch in January of 2023. And then I want to tell you just really quickly about the new series that will come for 2023. It is called Keys to Joyful Living. It is a podcast and collaborative book anthology project that Elizabeth Hill of Greenheart Living Press and I are collaborating on, and gathering and inviting those of you who hold keys in what you do and how you serve your clients and customers and your patients, and you hold keys that you help them live more joyful lives. We all want more joy in our lives. That's kind of the goal. So I know many of you have, again, worked through your mess. These keys have become your message, and happily will share them with the world. So I'm looking forward to that for next year. And thank you again, LaChelle. Do you have any parting words of wisdom you'd like to share with us?
Well, I just want to wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I know when it comes to coming together for collaborations, it can be challenging. My first collaborative book was during the global pandemic, and I was the only contributing author from the United States. It was a global project.
Wow.
And there are so many people that are blessed with being able to share their voice. And I want to encourage people who feel like you have a story, you're kind of nervous about sharing it, be a part of an anthology, because it is really a great accountability, and it helps to create a community of support that can help you as you get comfortable being able to share
Yep.
your perspective. So I love what you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You
Mhm.
can find information about the 2023 Keys to Joyful Living project at envisiongreatness.com. And up at the top, there's an apply to projects. It lists all the information. And if you still have questions, contact me, and we'll have a chat so that you can make an informed, sourced decision about joining us for 2023 Keys to Joyful Living. So I appreciate you all. Thank you all. And remember, you are joy, looking for a way to express.
Bye, everybody.